Okay, let's jump right into this explainer because we are tackling a massive headache for every AI developer today. We're talking about bounded autonomy, and specifically how to handle that intense user pressure for frictionless AI without accidentally breaking your entire system architecture. We've all been there, right? You're fielding requests to make an AI feel completely magical and seamless, while under the hood, you are desperately working to keep it safe and bounded. To figure this out, we've got a solid roadmap for today. We'll start with the pull of the shortcut, look at shifting the action boundary, learn how to automate the safe cases and escalate exceptions, dive into the serious risks of dumb retries, walk through a practical boundary pressure test, and finally, wrap up with how to give users leverage without losing system authority. All right, part one, the pull of the shortcut. You've absolutely heard these exact phrases in your sprint planning. Just send it. Just retry it. Stop asking me every time. Or my personal favorite, just approve it automatically. Now, it is super important to remember that users aren't intentionally asking for unsafe AI. They really aren't trying to cause a system meltdown. They're just asking for less friction in their everyday workflows. And that brings us to the ultimate tug of war we have to manage as builders: translating the user's desire for pure speed into safe, reliable architecture. The user wants the shortcut, sure, but your system fundamentally needs the boundary to operate securely. Every shortcut they ask for has the potential to silently change your system's authority. Let's see what that looks like in part two, shifting the action boundary. Imagine a concrete example: an AI drafting customer messages. Initially, to keep things safe, the workflow is highly manual. The AI drafts the message, a human reviews that draft, and then the human actually hits send. It's incredibly safe, but of course, users quickly complain that the review step is way too repetitive and slow. So, the team caves to the pressure and changes it. Now it's simply AI drafts, AI sends. Sounds great for the user, right? But here's the catch. Removing the human is not merely a UX change. It fundamentally moves the system's action boundary and completely shifts its authority. You've essentially just handed the AI the keys to the car. What this brilliantly illustrates is that autonomy is not a binary, one-size-fits-all switch. We have to empower users to smoothly adjust an agent between manual, assisted, and fully autonomous modes. Letting users actually choose their level of delegation, depending on the specific task, their trust in the model, and the context, is a vital mechanism for building trust over time. So how do we actually implement that? That's part three: automate safe, escalate exceptions. Making that shortcut safer comes down to one core principle. We have to classify messages by their consequence. Routine, low-risk, reversible cases, those can auto-send all day. But sensitive, unusual, or high-consequence messages, those must hit a hard stop for review. You automate the safe case and you escalate the exception. Take a look at this structured escalation process. Notice how it uses human in the loop, not as an afterthought, but as a first-class branch to handle ambiguity and high-stakes decisions. The agent generates output candidates, but a human reviewer evaluates anything flagged for escalation before it ever becomes an approved output for the end user. You do this by integrating self-assessed certainty scores and clear risk thresholds. For example, if model certainty drops below 0.7, it triggers an escalation. Same goes for conflicting recommendations or persistent errors. This ensures the AI handles the bulk of the grunt work, while humans only step in where their nuanced judgment actually matters. It prevents alert fatigue while keeping the whole operation exceptionally safe. Now let's talk about another massive source of friction in part four: the risk of dumb retries. Just retry automatically. It sounds so incredibly reasonable, doesn't it? But in real workflows, this is a trap. Especially in asynchronous environments like WhatsApp, or when you're dealing with legacy systems where acknowledgements arrive late or just completely vanish. A so-called dumb retry in these scenarios can dangerously duplicate real-world business actions. Think about it. You absolutely do not want to charge a customer's credit card twice just because of a dropped network packet. Because real-world constraints, like patchy connectivity and fragmented internal tools, drastically increase the importance of explicit state, we have to use a highly defensive sequence before we ever attempt a retry. First, we flag the state as unknown. Then we hold. We verify what actually happened in the real world, we reconcile our data, and only then do we retry if we've proven it's actually safe to do so. Architecturally, this means separating your stateless orchestration, which handles your routing, from your stateful agents that persist context. It means you absolutely need exponential backoff for those transient failures. And crucially, you must log every single validation error or fallback to a dead letter queue. This prevents lost events from silently corrupting your system in the background. So, how do you handle these requests in real time? That's part 5, the boundary pressure test. I highly recommend taking a mental screenshot of this checklist because it's your key to safely translating user feedback into robust architecture. Whenever someone asks you to remove a step for convenience, stop and ask, what authority actually changes here? What real-world action is suddenly becoming automatic? How bad is the consequence if the AI gets it wrong? Is the action reversible? What evidence replaces the control we're removing? And finally, can we automate the safe cases while escalating the exceptions? Which brings us to our final takeaway in part 6, leverage without losing authority. Remember, never treat the user as the enemy. All that pressure for shortcuts, that frustration is actually a genuine, highly valuable signal. It's product feedback pointing exactly to where your workflow friction lies. But your job as the architect is to ensure that granting that convenience doesn't strip away the essential guardrails of your application. You have to be the defender of the system's integrity. Convenience should never silently rewrite system authority. And that leads us to the ultimate golden rule for building trustworthy, production-grade AI systems. Use the lowest autonomy level that still gives the user useful leverage. Don't just over-automate because the technology makes it technically possible. Automate purposefully and keep the human in the loop where it counts. So I'm going to leave you with this final provocative thought to take into your next architecture review. When you remove a step for convenience, what real-world action are you silently making automatic? Keep that front of mind, and it will fundamentally change how you build.